Why saving cash feels safe, but isn't. For most people, saving cash feels like the responsible thing to do. It's simple, it's familiar, and it feels safe. You can see the number, you know where it is, and it doesn't fluctuate the way investments do. In a world that feels uncertain, cash offers something comforting: stability. But that sense of safety is more psychological than practical. Cash feels safe because it doesn't move. But safety isn't just about whether a number changes. It's about whether that number can still do what you need it to do in the future. To understand why cash can quietly become unsafe over time, it helps to separate two ideas that often get confused: nominal value and real value. Nominal value is the number you see. Real value is what that number can buy. When you save cash, the nominal value stays the same or increases slightly. But the real value depends on prices, and prices don't stand still. This is where the problem begins. Inflation slowly reduces the purchasing power of cash. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but consistently. Each year, the same amount of money buys a little less than it did before. Because this happens gradually, it doesn't trigger the same alarm bells as a market crash or a visible loss. There's no red line going down, no notification, no moment that forces attention. The erosion happens quietly, spread across everyday spending. Another reason cash feels safe is control. Cash is liquid. It's accessible. It doesn't rely on markets being open or assets being sold. That flexibility is genuinely useful. Cash can absorb shocks, it can buy time, it can reduce stress in emergencies, but flexibility and long-term security are not the same thing. Cash is good at handling short-term uncertainty. It is weak against long-term change. The longer money sits still, the more time inflation has to work against it. This creates a strange situation. The thing that feels safest in the short term often becomes the least effective over long periods. This is especially true when interest rates on savings are low. If cash earns little or nothing, the gap between nominal value and real value grows wider over time. Even when interest is present, it often struggles to keep up with rising prices. So, while the balance appears to grow, purchasing power may still decline. Another reason people prefer cash is visibility. You can see it. You can check it instantly. It feels tangible. Assets like shares or property feel abstract by comparison. They fluctuate, they require patience, they involve uncertainty. But volatility is not the same as risk. Risk is the chance of failing to meet future needs. Volatility is simply movement along the way. Cash avoids volatility by standing still. But standing still in a changing environment carries its own risk. This is where many people get caught. They associate safety with lack of movement rather than with long-term usefulness. Cash also feels morally responsible. Saving cash is often associated with discipline and caution. Spending less than you earn, avoiding debt, being sensible. Those are valuable habits, but good habits can exist inside systems that quietly work against them. The system doesn't reward intentions. It responds to structures. And in a system where money gradually loses value, holding large amounts of cash for long periods comes with an invisible cost. This cost doesn't show up as a penalty. It shows up as opportunity loss. What cash could have done over time but didn't. This doesn't mean cash is useless. It means cash has a role, not a destination. Cash works best as a buffer, a tool for flexibility, a way to manage uncertainty. It works poorly as a long-term store of value. That role is quietly shifted elsewhere in the system. Another reason cash feels safe is that it avoids regret. When markets fall, people holding assets feel discomfort. They see losses, they question decisions. People holding cash feel relieved that they avoided that experience. But regret avoidance can be expensive. Avoiding short-term discomfort often comes at the cost of long-term erosion. Because inflation is always present, doing nothing is still a decision. It just doesn't feel like one. This is why people can save diligently for years and still feel disappointed with the outcome. They did what felt sensible. They avoided obvious risks. But they underestimated the risk of standing still. The system doesn't punish cash holders openly, it simply fails to protect them. This creates confusion rather than outrage. People sense that something isn't working, but they can't point to a clear mistake. That's because the issue isn't behavior, it's alignment. Cash is aligned with short-term stability, not long-term preservation. Once that distinction is clear, the discomfort around saving starts to make sense. Why large balances don't feel as reassuring as expected. Why goals keep moving further away. Why playing it safe doesn't always lead to security. Understanding this isn't about rejecting cash. It's about seeing it for what it is, a useful tool, a temporary shelter, not a long-term solution in a system that quietly changes the value of money over time. When safety is defined only as avoiding movement, it can become fragile. Real safety is about whether your resources can still support your life as conditions change. And that's a different question entirely. If you want more clear explanations of how money, business, and everyday systems actually work, subscribe.